Today we're going to talk about religious syncretism. Religious syncretism is when you have two or more religions that essentially look for common ground. It's the morphing of religions to create unity. For example, prior to the Israelite monarchy, the Israelites were held in slavery in Egypt. The Egyptians believed that their pharaoh was appointed by God and was, of course, a god in and of itself.
You're kidding me.
Fast forward a couple hundred years, the Israelites demanded Samuel to find us an anointed one of God, a king for themselves. The idea of a divine kingship was not unique to the Israelites.
I mean, are you kidding me?
The Egyptians believed that their leader was appointed by their God. The Romans, when we get to them, they believed that their emperor was appointed by God. And of course, the Israelites also believed that their king was appointed by God. Like Americans are superstitious of the number 13, the Babylonians were equally as cautious of the number 7, which is why on the seventh day the Babylonians refused to do any work. It was a day of rest.
You gotta be kidding me.
Obviously, we just got done talking about how the Jews were held captive and living in Babylon. And some scholars believe that the Israelites never believed in resting on the seventh day until they met the Babylonians, who rested on the seventh day.
Are you kidding me?
The Genesis 1 creation story, where God creates the earth in 6 days and rests on the seventh, was written during the Babylonian captivity.
You've got to be kidding me.
God rests on the seventh because that's what the Babylonians were already doing. Perhaps the Genesis 1 creation story was also an ideology on why people rested on the seventh day. Babylonians were superstitious. We don't have 13 floors in a lot of buildings.
It comes after 12, huh?
We've also mentioned in this class how the Noah's Ark story parodies the Epic of Gilgamesh, which was also an ancient Mesopotamian story. Of course, details have been altered, but that's what happens with syncretism. So why I'm bringing this up is that during this period of Persian occupation, we continue to have Persian influence upon the Jewish faith. Now, the Persians were dualist. So far, all these other pagan cultures have been polytheistic, many gods. The Persians have narrowed it down to 2 gods, but these 2 gods are equal. There's a god of good who lives in a heavenly oasis, and then there's a god of evil who lives in a fiery pit. And at the end of the days, these 2 gods are going to duke it out for control of the universe.
You've got to be kidding me.
Does that sound somewhat familiar to you? And when you got your left behind apocalyptic stuff there too, but the end of the days. But we never went as far as saying the devil was a god that was equal to our God. But, of course, the devil seems to be an antagonist to Yahweh. And where does he reside? Check out my History of the Devil lesson. He resides in a fiery pit. Okay, the idea of a fiery pit came from the Persians. The idea of this antagonistic god against a god of good who lived in an oasis. Persian influence. Prior to the Persian influence, the Jews never believed in a heaven or hell. They believed in some neutral place called Sheol.
You gotta be kidding me, right?
Sheol was neutral, it was neither good nor bad, and it's where all people went. The idea of a heavenly reward or a hellish punishment, a life after death, Persian. And further exploring this life after death idea, resurrection was not a Jewish teaching until the Persian influence.
You gotta be kidding me. What? You gotta be kidding me!
So we really, as Christians, have to thank the Persians, because many of our fundamental beliefs, the idea of heavenly reward, resurrection of the dead, Judgment Day, comes from Persian Jewish syncretism. Now, does this scare you a bit? It shouldn't. I just got done saying on the last episode that God will work through pagan forces. Cyrus the Great was a Persian. He was never a Jew. God worked through Cyrus to fulfill his covenant. Hate to break it to you, the people of God do not have an exclusivity agreement when it comes to truth.
You gotta be kidding me!
And truth can be revealed from other religions. Truth can also be revealed through non-religious, secular ideas. I mean, literature, philosophy can reveal truth. Science reveals truth. Truth is truth. And God is going to find the proper avenue, a vehicle, if you will, to transmit that truth. As Christians, we believe the Holy Spirit touches everyone. So perhaps the Persians got that message about life after death before the people of God ever knew it. And it was their occupation of the promised land that led to this message of truth being promulgated, being proclaimed to God's people. So don't question the avenues that God uses to convey his message. Not all messages are going to come from God's appointed prophets. Perhaps science, perhaps a philosopher or a secular world leader can convey truth in a way that was more immediate and that was more effective at change than any of God's appointed prophets in the Old Testament. God continues to use whatever force he chooses as avenues of grace. He'll do this again even in New Testament times, post-New Testament times. God's going to work through the Romans to save the Christians.
Are you kidding me?
We tend to fall into this religious superiority mentality that we know it and nobody else does. It's not the way God worked in the Bible. And a lot of times the people of God didn't know it. It was others that came in and taught them. So we don't know everything. The Holy Spirit works through everyone, and that could even be the non-Christian. Truth is truth, and the Holy Spirit will find whatever means necessary to convey that truth. In this case, it's the Persians.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm actually not.